Hey, this is Bill Varney from FishTheSurf.com with your surf fishing report for Friday, September 5th. Well, happy weekend, everybody. So first, surf fishing once again remains good. A little bit of warmer water came in this week, so all of that seemed to help out anglers with some good fishing. So starting up in Santa Barbara, surf fishing remained good up there. Really kind of a carbon copy of last week's report. Still really good up there. Halibut fishing remains probably the best up in that area. Anywhere from Henry's, East Beach, by the harbor has been good, and then up above that Hope Ranch all the way to UCSB. I know there's also some good fishing for halibut, probably above that all the way up to Gaviota, but no reports yet in that area. One of the reasons for that is there's been quite a bit of bait in the water, really small, kind of that 1 to 2 inch, and we're not sure if it's grunion or anchovy out there, but that seems to bring some of those fish closer into shore. And really the secret for that up in Santa Barbara for catching those halibut, because there's been so many sublegals up there, is anglers who are familiar with where the eelgrass beds are have been doing very well. They've been fishing some hard baits, but in large part weedless swim baits in a white or a light gray color have worked really, really well. So once again, those anglers who figured out where the eelgrass beds are have been fishing just over those beds, and that's where the bigger legal halibut have been. There have been a few white sea bass in the count. They've all been small up there. The other thing is no word on stripers whatsoever up there. And the other thing is that the perch fishing has slowed somewhat. Still okay up there, but all of the fish seem to be about palm-sized fish. And then last but not least, a lot of anglers in Santa Barbara, La Conchita, Carpinteria, Summerlin, and then in Santa Barbara City proper, have been seeing a lot of big corbina up there, but they've not been biting. They've been very, very shy of biting. And one thing I want to remind everybody of, and we're going to see this in the report today up and down the coast, is that when you're fishing for corbina, especially this time of year, and especially when the bigger fish are around, because remember, big fish got big by being smart, not by being stupid and just eating anything that they came across. You want to be sure to have the best, most natural bait presentation possible. And that, if that means a little lighter line or a smaller hook that you can bury in a sand crab or bury in your bloodworm, that's going to be more successful for you. Down in Ventura, really of note is that the corbina fishing did slow down considerably on those bigger fish. We're seeing more of those bigger fish in the South Bay, oddly enough, and then up north in Santa Barbara, although not biting yet, but they will be on the bite soon, I'm sure, in Santa Barbara. But Ventura has slowed a bit, and that Oxnard shores all the way up through Ventura, all the way up to C Street there, has been dealing with eelgrass and kelp in the water. Even though a lot of warm water came and invaded there lately, it seems to have broken loose quite a bit of that eelgrass and kelp. And so anglers who have found spots in between those areas have had good luck on halibut fishing. Anglers who have been fishing for corbina have found a lot of those corbina around the Ventura Harbor to C Street or on the jetties area there. And the anglers who've done well on those have been using soft shell sand crabs. But most of those fish have been really small. They've been kind of in that 12 to maybe 20 inch, 18 inch range. That's always a good sign, because those fish are probably about 2 years old, and they're of course working their way north. But that is of note, because Ventura for months was certainly getting the biggest fish all along the coast there. As we make our way down to Point Mugu, got a report from the rocks off Point Mugu. There's been good buttermouth, barred surf perch, opali surf perch fishing there, and those are for folks that have been fishing sand crabs. Mussel has worked well in there. And then for guys fishing, anglers fishing strip squid, that in that area, and really any rocky area around that section has worked really good for calico bass. The calico bass still are really on the bite with this warm water up there. So Malibu looks good. Still not getting in reports from mainstream middle of Malibu, but hopefully somebody who's watching will send them. And remember, when it comes to surf fishing reports, I can use everybody's surf fishing report. I really appreciate it. That's how we get the information about what's on the beach. So if you have a report, just send it to fishthesurf@mail.com. Pictures, no pictures, conditions about the water, love to hear about all of that. Down in the South Bay, corbina and yellowfin croaker in that Hermosa and Manhattan area continue to bite very well. This week saw the biggest corbina of the entire coast coming out of Hermosa Beach this week. And anglers who are fishing down there, once again, are being very careful with their bait. They're going out in advance and catching sand crabs at high tide under both the Hermosa and the Manhattan Pier. That's been a great place to get sand crabs. They've been there in really big numbers, so it gives you a chance to pick through quite a few to get those soft crabs. And those anglers have been concentrating on their presentation there in the surf, and also fishing in that Hermosa Manhattan area on those low tides coming up to high tides with less junk in the water, and certainly the fish corbina surfing each successive wave closer into shore to get over their food have had some really good luck. The best area for sure has been all the way from King Harbor to the Manhattan Pier, and certainly between those two piers has been really, really good in the last week also. And then the other news about the South Bay down there is that Redondo and Torrance Beach have been really good fishing this last week, and we talked about it the week before, for corbina and spotfin. The main reason down there, and that would be below the avenue, so where Torrance and Redondo meet, the avenue's there, that's called the Esplanade. Below the Esplanade there on the beach, there's been so many sand crabs down in that area. And that's kind of unusual. I spent basically my whole childhood fishing that area, and there were sand crabs here and there. We'd never find them as in great numbers as we find in Hermosa. But this year, there's a tremendous number of them there. There's been quite a few corbina down there. These have been these 18 to 20 inch corbina down there, but there's been quite a few 2 to 4 pound spotfin croaker down there. They've been anywhere from the Sapphire Jetty all the way down to the Torrance Ramp. And I want to remind everybody about that area down there. Rat Beach, right after Torrance there, right when you get to Palos Verdes. Many times this time of year, late in the beginning in the fall and then late into the fall, those corbina and those spotfin and stripers sometimes will migrate kind of down to the corner down there. There's a corner there where rocks meet sand, and right in that area, although it can be somewhat kelpy, you have to walk off a little bit from it and fish that area, can be very, very good for big spotfin croaker this time of year, probably into the month of October or so. So keep your eye on that and send me a report if you're down at Torrance or Hermosa or Redondo, anywhere in the South Bay, as we need to keep in touch with what's going on down there for sure. And then when we make our way down to Orange County, we have like a full slate of stuff going down there. So Seal Beach area remains good for halibut fishing. An angler, again this week, caught a 24-inch keeper halibut in that area by fishing live smelt. So that continues to be good. There's a lot of shorts down in that area, but really most notable, and I'm going to say all the way from about the Seal Beach Pier all the way to the Newport Beach Pier, has been these offshore bait balls. Nobody's gotten a real good look that I know of at what they are exactly, but there's a lot of birds diving on them. That's of course the easiest way to see those is with the birds diving on them. So something's obviously pushing them up and those birds are coming down on top of them. And as a result of it, anglers have reported to me that they've seen angel sharks, thrasher sharks just offshore and in the surf, and also great whites in that area. So that Seal Beach to Huntington Beach area over Bolsa Chica remains good along there. Of course, now we're seeing the sharks offshore because there's so much bait, and of course they're inside close eating that. When we get to that Surfside, Bolsa Chica area, remains good for those smaller corbina. Once again, we're getting a lot of 12 to 18 inchers in there on sand crabs, bloodworms, lugworms. Those are all working well. Be sure to go by Norm's Big Fish Tackle, which is right on the corner of Seal Beach Boulevard and PCH, to pick up your bait before you go to the beach there. That's a great tackle shop to stop by and ask for advice about surf fishing. But that has stayed about the same in that area. It doesn't seem to have picked up too much with the yellowfin croaker and the corbina being a little bit smaller there. But then we make our way down to the Newport jetties, where we've had plenty of perch down there, a few smaller halibut, but once again, the big news down there has been these bait balls offshore that have been pushed up by Bonito just outside the surf line at times, and especially in the evening. And I want to remind you, a really good way to try for those and try for what's pushing it up. It could be stripers. We've seen that in the past. Halibut, of course. Yellowfin croaker do that. All these different types of fish will do that. And the best way to get a shot at those, bonita included, is to have a crocodile, cast master, a spoon like that, maybe 3/4 ounce up to 1 ounce, half ounce maybe to 1 ounce, let's say, and casting that out and trying to get it as close as you can to these bait balls where the birds are diving in. Look for the diving birds. That's where those fish are going to be. So that part of Orange County continues to be good. Not too many reports this week down from southern Orange County, but I'm sure that San Onofre area is still doing well. So keep your eye on that. If you've been fishing down there, send me a report, please. And then if we make our way down to San Diego, you know, warmer water in San Diego, it seems to have maybe pushed fish north. And this is what we traditionally see in the summer. As the water warms up in San Diego, it lessens the amount of sand crabs and other bait available for fish. The water inside places like Mission Bay, San Diego Bay, and all of the estuaries down there gets so warm that fish like corbina and so forth don't normally swim into that warmer water. So they make their way up north. So that may be why it's been slower down in San Diego. Of course, we've been dealing the entire summer and most of the winter with this kelp and eelgrass and so forth that's been in the water. But that zone from downtown Carlsbad all the way down to the Ponto Jetty has done really well on these smaller, like 1 to 2 pound yellowfin croaker and these palm-sized perch that have been biting down there. And a lot of anglers have been using bloodworms, and a lot of sand crabs that are still on the beach in the areas down there that have sand. So that remains to be okay. It's not fantastic. Didn't hear word about a lot of corbina there. And then as we make our way a little bit farther south into Torrey Pines and Blacks, the big news coming out of that area is anglers who have collected grunion have been fishing down there in areas that are, you know, relatively near rock structure and done really well in calico bass. You know, calico bass bite has been amazing. It doesn't matter if you're at Catalina or Dana Point. There's been a lot of calico bass, so they're very, very active in close. And some of these nice legal-sized calico bass have been coming out of the surf down in that Blacks and Torrey Pines area in the last week on anglers who are Carolina rigging or actually just putting them on a small lead head grunion that they had collected, frozen, defrosted grunion. So that's a really good sign. And then last but not least down in San Diego, when you're going down to Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, both of those have been good all summer. The thing down there, once again, has been all the stuff in the water. And anglers who've been successful down there have been patient. They've been walking the beach and trying to fish in between where there's junk in the water and where the water seems to be more clear, more open. And they've had success on both corbina, no real big ones. Once again, a lot of reports this week of those 12 to 18 inches down there. But there's been some really nice 2 to 4 pound spot fin croaker caught down there. And once again, the bait of choice down there has been bloodworms. But anglers tell me also that they've done well on the corbina on soft shell sand crabs. And they were telling me that the trick for sure is that under the Crystal Pier, there's just a ton of sand crabs. And at that higher tide, you can pick them up, check through them and find those softer sand crabs, separate them out, and then use those later that day or the next morning for bait. So that's our surf fishing report for this week. It was pretty darn good. Now I want to remind everybody coming up this weekend is we're going to have our newsletter come out the next day or two. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, go to fishthesurf.com. Right on the front page, you just enter your email address. We'll send it to you once a month. Along with that will come a reminder about our surf fishing reports, so that's great. And then anybody who's in the market for a new surf rod, because you deserve it, surf tackle, any of those, please check out surffishtackle.com. And last but not least, number one, I need your reports. Please send me your surf fishing reports to fishthesurf@mail.com. I really appreciate that, of course. And then last of all, remember to subscribe, like, and share this video and my other videos if you like them and like your friends to learn a little bit more about surf fishing. So thank you so much for watching today, and until next week when I see you right here, good luck on the beach.